Good afternoon, TVCC. How are we doing today? It can be better than that. Today is Friday. There we go. Now we got some enthusiasm. Well, thank you all for attending our third and final installment of our 2023 Presidential Search Open Forum meeting. Once again, my name is Rod, and so we're going to kind of go through the same process that we have done for the last couple days. I'm going to kind of do a brief intro, tell you a little bit about it, then we're going to go through the bio for Dr. Wendy Elmore. Once we get done, then she'll be up, start to do her introduction. Once she gets finished, then we'll go through our open mic session, or go through our questions. Once we get done with our questions, then we will go to our satellite campuses out at HSC, Terrell, and Palestine. And then finally, we will have an open mic session, and then we will wrap everything up by 4 o'clock so that y'all can get out and get your weekend started. Does that sound all right? All right. Here's the bio. Dr. Wendy Elmore currently serves as the Provost and Executive Vice President of Lamar State College Orange in Orange, Texas. Lamar State College, or LSCO as I'll call it from now on, is one of 7 independent institutions within the Texas State University system. Prior to arriving at LSCO in April of 2020, Elmore served Trinity Valley Community College for 14 years in a host of positions that included Director of Testing, Director of Distant Learning, Associate Vice President of Academic Affairs, Vice President of Instruction / Chief Academic Officer, and Adjunct Developmental Math and Psychology Faculty Member. That's a mouthful. Wendy earned a Doctorate of Education and Educational Leadership from Lamar University in Beaumont, Texas, a Master of Arts and Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from Stephen F. Austin University in Nacogdoches, Texas. Dr. Elmore is a product of 2-year colleges as she completed many undergraduate academic transfer hours at Trinity Valley Community College in Palestine, Texas. Since Dr. Elmore arrived at LSCO, the college has seen an overall increase in student enrollment, even amidst the worldwide pandemic that left many 2-year colleges with declining or stagnant enrollments. According to preliminary data published by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board in November of 2022, Lamar State College Orange experienced one of the most significant growth increases in 2-year colleges throughout the state of Texas during the fall 2022 semester when compared with the fall 2020 and fall 2021. Also, under Elmore's leadership, numerous credit and non-credit programs leading to high-wage, high-demand careers have been added, and more than $4 million in grant funding and private donations have been awarded to the college. Recently, Dr. Elmore was appointed by the Speaker of the Texas House of Representatives, Dade, Phelan? Thank you. To serve on a 9-member statewide industry-based certification advisory council. She also serves as a board member for the Southeast Texas Workforce Development Center and is an Orange County Community Advisory Board member. While at Trinity Valley Community College, Dr. Elmore was named the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board Upper East Texas Region Chairperson, as well as the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board Institutional Liaison. Wendy is married to Brad, a retired TVCC sociology instructor of 44 years, and she has 2 grown children, Katie and James, who live in Palestine, Texas. If y'all would do me the favor of having a nice TVCC welcome for Dr. Wendy Elmore. Go get them.
Okay, gotcha. I'm sorry. There's a couple of things that I heard a moment ago with the introduction, and one of which it's Friday. And so I'm standing between each of you and the weekend. So that's really a fun place to be. And the second thing I heard was I'm the 3rd day in a row. So wow, y'all are troopers in this audience. And I want to thank each and every one of you for giving up some time to come and welcome me back here today. It's been such a very a happy day. It's brought back such great memories. And I just want to have an opportunity to share a couple things that I have of interest. I was going to do a presentation, but I've heard it'd be better not to. So I have just a few things to say before we can open it up for questions. And really what I want to do is I want to talk about a couple things. Why the TVCC presidency? Why is that appealing to me? Because that may be a question that each of you would have. And I think it's worth answering right now. And it's pretty simple. Really, it's just those first four letters, TVCC. So Trinity Valley Community College. That's pretty darn special for anyone in this room, anyone who's on Zoom or in the community watching. I would be willing to bet that I have something in common with every one of you watching today, whether you're in this room or watching remotely. Did you know, and I think Rod stole my thunder a little bit, but I was a student at Trinity Valley Community College in 1990. So Dr. Hurley and I have already talked about this. I think he was 15 and I was 12, but I was I was an advanced student. He obviously was. He was already Dr. Hurley. I was a student on the Palestine campus, and I had many current teachers that are still serving today at Trinity Valley very well, including Dr. Hurley, as a student. And so that was in Palestine in the early, and I was his lab assistant in biology. And one of the things that I shared with him this morning in a meeting we were in was, at the time, I knew I was going to pursue a degree, a bachelor's degree in mathematics. I don't know why, but that was what I was going to do. I was not going to be a teacher, but that was what I was going to do. I was going to study mathematics. But under his influence, I decided to do a minor in biology too. So it really did. He left an influence there. Did you know also that I've taught on 3 Trinity Valley Community College campuses? So in 1997, I was a developmental math teacher, Charlie Aiken. I see his better half. Is he in the audience? He had faith in me, and he invited me to come and teach developmental math. At the time, I was actually a high school counselor with a high school teacher, a math teacher in Elkhart, Texas. And Elkhart, if you're not familiar, is one of our high schools and our ISDs in our service area. So I had that experience and was able to teach developmental math in the evenings, and that was a great experience. It was very rewarding, and so I got to see the other side of Trinity Valley. I've also had the opportunity to teach psychology at night on the Athens campus, and even Dr. Allen invited me to teach at the Terrell campus several semesters, some learning framework courses. So for you teachers, I had that in common with you. Did you know that I was a high school counselor? So as Cindy Aiken left to come here and become the director of testing, I followed her. I became the high school counselor at Elkhart. And while that may not be meaningful to you, again, Elkhart, if I can remind you, is a school in TVCC's service area. And so as a high school counselor, wear many hats. But I can tell you, I was in that role for 4 years. One of my favorite days of every year was when Audrey Hawkins would pop in unannounced, which I loved, and she always had goodies. I saw her today still giving out goodies. So that was something that really resonates with me, and I have fond memories of that time, Audrey, and I appreciate the fact that you, at that time, I think I was probably 15 by then, were an ambassador, and you were just such a solid ambassador for the college. You would come down to Elkhart, Texas. So that's a great memory for me. Of course, then in 2006, I saw the light. I became a cardinal. I became a full-time cardinal. And I, as Rod mentioned in my bio, have been in a variety of roles here. So it's because of that, I have had the opportunity to work alongside so many of you in this room in different capacities. And those memories are things that I still cherish today, even after being gone 1,000 days from Trinity Valley Community College. So I have those things in common with each of you. During those few years, that span of time, I was also a Palestine resident and paid taxes to Trinity Valley, and then I was an Athens resident. So I've been a community member for Athens. So for those community members here, thank you for your interest. I've been there, and we know that Trinity Valley is a community college. I was proud of the things Trinity Valley did when I was a resident of Palestine and of Athens. I might have been biased, but I was very proud. And I see the things today. I've had the opportunity to take a tour, and I've seen some really cool things. Y'all have done a lot of things in 1,000 days with COVID, and it's very exciting. The other thing that so I'm married to a TVCC teacher. He, like Rod said, taught Trinity Valley for 44 years. We were talking this morning and doing some reminiscing. It was really fun. He reminded me of the 6 presidents, he's worked for 5 of them. So that was really kind of interesting. So I tell you all that to let you know that that is my why for this TVCC president. I am TVCC. In case that doesn't convince you, and what you'll probably hear from others is there's some great things going on. And let me just tell you, we know that the nation knows about Trinity Valley. So we know that the state of Texas knows about Trinity Valley. We've got premier athletics in every capacity. We've got premier cheer, our cardettes. I've had the opportunity just to be able to walk around, see our SGA. Joel was one of my tour guides today, and it's just fascinating to watch the great things that Trinity Valley does inside the classroom, outside the classroom. I've sat in so many cardette shows in this very room, drama performances. I have so many cardinals that I bought over the years through the art show. So I have carried Trinity Valley with me these last 1,000 days. So my why for being for seeking to be the next TVCC president is because of also the excellent things you do. And I know that we are TVCC. And one of the things I hope is that we will transform, value, and create champions. We will transform, T, value, V, and create champions. So that's a goal of mine. That's what I know that we can all come together and do. And I want to also tell you a few things about why I would be uniquely qualified to be the president. So once I made the decision that I wanted to pursue this, obviously it was very exciting opportunity for me to pursue. But for those of you who may or may not know me, I've got some interesting attributes that probably set me aside from other candidates I don't necessarily know. But I have over 16 years of experience in SACS, which is our accrediting body. And SACS is the gold standard, in case you aren't aware. It is the gold standard of accrediting bodies in higher education. Those 16 years were included in both this institution and where I currently am, down in Orange, Texas. And under my leadership, I've experienced 2 decennial reaffirmations, 2 5-year interim reaffirmations, and close to 15 off-site campus instructional site visits and reports. So I'm also a certified peer reviewer. SACS is a big thing. Without SACS, I don't know that these lights would even be on today. So that experience is something that I think is worth noting and worth letting you know that I think that would set me apart possibly from any other candidate who might be before you on the stage. Another thing that I would like to share is that I have at LSCO, Lamar State College Orange, some of the successes, and Rod spoke a bit about them, but we preliminarily spring, after day 4 of classes, are seeing about a 12% increase in enrollment from last spring. So we've got some really cool things going on. We've, as he said, have received lots of grant awards. I have learned how to be a private foundation asker, and I've made some really good relationships with a private foundation that also has some solid roots in Anderson County. And that relationship, I anticipate, would be one that I would be able to carry with me. Should I be able to come here? That would be meaningful to Palestine, Texas. Most recently, I was awarded over $800,000 from this private foundation back in November. We've seen some drops in our student withdrawal rate, some significant drops. May not sound like it to you, but we went in the fall of 21 to the fall of 22, fall of 20 to fall of 21, from 9 to 6% in our withdrawal rates. That was an important metric for us to monitor and track. Spring was similar results. Spring of 21 to spring of 22, we saw, again, withdrawal rates from our students of 9 to 6%. Just to cast a bit of a understanding of what that means, our students at Lamar State College Orange are 76% of them are first generation. We have a very vibrant student life campus. We've got a very solid student activities, robust, and that is the hub for our students. They're part-time students primarily. And so to have moved the needle without those withdrawal rates, that was significant, and those are successes that we're celebrating. I also, as Rod mentioned, have been appointed by the Speaker of the House to be a member of a nine-person committee that was actually established in the 87th legislation. And so that's something that I also experienced, and expertise that I've gained in the last thousand days that I would bring with me here. Another thing that I think sets me apart is the relationships. And I knew I had some really strong relationships, but it was really reaffirmed today. It's been so rewarding to see each of you. To see each of you here today is meaningful. This is day 3, it's a Friday, and I still get to see you. I'm delighted that you're committed enough to care for the future of this institution, that you're willing to be up here and learn more about me and why I want to be here. I've got strong relationships with superintendents in the area. You know, I know Dr. Sims here in Athens. I know Dr. Wendy Eldridge in Crandall. I know Justin Terry, who's the superintendent of Forney, Jason Marshall in Palestine. So those connections are important. I've realized, and I think probably a lot of us have since the pandemic, relationships are fundamental. And that's really what can carry us through the most difficult of times. So when things get tough, being able to rely on those strong relationships and pick up the phone, have lunch, or meet with them, that really can carry us through. So I've been grateful for that, and I know that if I have the opportunity to return to Trinity Valley, those would be able to be rejuvenated without much disruption. I've got connections, obviously, with local state representatives and senators. Robert Nichols is in my current district. I've invited him in October. We had him on our campus touring. Obviously, Keith Bell in the Forney area, you know, he is solid. So those connections are strong, and as a president, they're instrumental. They're instrumental in fighting for Trinity Valley, because if I'm selected as the president, it will be my #1 goal to fight to make sure that Trinity Valley is the go-to place in our service area. Obviously, I know Lance Gooden too, and that doesn't hurt. We need all the help we can get. So another attribute that I think sets me apart is I've worked closely with the regional community college presidents. And obviously, as a college president, that's a new level. I've not done that. But I dare say I'm ready to take that step. I've got a support system, a network of other presidents that have already reached out to me, even before today. I clearly know Jeremy McMillan, Pam Anglin, who is at Paris Junior College, Brenda Kays at Kilgore College, Brent Wallace. I see them regularly, even when I'm down in Orange. I get to see them at my statewide meetings. They have, Dr. Juan Mejia, they've reached out to me, and they've offered to provide a very smooth transition and a support that I think is an advantage I would bring to the table. I also have Texas community college experience. And so Texas is a unique state. It's big. They're proud of higher ed. Sometimes they do things a little bit complicated. Their policies, their rules, their regulations, I've kind of got them down. I know that, and that's important. It's important that when TAC, which is the Texas Association of Community College Presidents, come together, that they can advocate for our funding needs with the legislature. I've got partnerships with the Higher Education Coordinating Board. I mean, many of the associate commissioners and I frequently communicate. I clearly have experience in Texas statewide transfer and program development. Dual credit. Dual credit is a unique anomaly, and in Texas, I kind of got that figured out too. The ISD perspective, I know what motivates them. And then the transfer regulations, which are really a little bit more complicated than one would like to think. You can't just throw a program together. You got to do a little bit more research than that. And Texas is really funny about that. They like to know that your board of trustees supports that. They like to know that you have reached out to your colleges in the 50-mile radius and you've informed them and they have no disputes. So that's a very important attribute. I know those hoops to jump through, and it would be meaningful. And then the last attribute that I think distinguishes me from any other candidate is obviously the familiarity I have with Trinity Valley Community College. So as a multi-campus college, that brings a layer of complexities that I think we all are aware of. We're keenly aware of that. The Palestine community is significantly different than the Athens community. Their needs are different. Terrell, Kaufman, we each have our unique needs. And as the president, it would be very important that I had a pulse on all of those needs. I already have a pulse on all those needs. My children live in Palestine. I lived there for 25 years, I mentioned. My grandchildren are there. I've got a new one in case you want to see a picture afterwards. I know the complications between some of the counties that are in our service area. And so that would be a very small learning curve for me. So I would be able to hit the ground running and be the champion for TVCC in each of those communities and in the meaningful ways to those communities. I also am a Cardinal fan. I mean, my husband bleeds red, but I do too. I may or may not have been to Copper's Cove a couple of times to cheer on, maybe one of them with it really, really cold, to cheer on the National Football Championship football. I know I've been to Salina a couple of times, clearly to Tyler, all the regional areas. But when our students are performing, it's important that we show up and we show up big. And that's something that my husband, if there's any pressure in this whole thing, he's like, you've got to get me back to be able to watch the Cardinals. So that is something that sets me apart. I already have that within my heart to be a supporter, regardless of the location. You know, at PTK, I've traveled to Florida for PTK, SGA, it's just some phenomenal things. And so having been here, it's going to be important that I be able to pick up that really quickly. It is. So that being said, I don't want to belabor anything. There's other things I can say, but I really want to be sensitive and ensure that everyone has opportunities to ask questions of me or make comments. Is that appropriate, Rod? Okay. You have your own? Okay.
We're going to start in with our questions. So based on what you know about TVCC, what aspects of our college or initiatives that we are undertaking do you feel are innovative and want to seek to continue, and which ones cause you to pause and make you want to do some more research, see if it's best for our institution?
Well, I mean, I've seen some great things today. Honestly, there have been lots of transformation in the physical facilities on the Athens campus. One of the things I've been intrigued by, and I've watched you from afar, is the HighFlex instructional modality, and that's really innovative. That's cool. I don't know what support faculty are getting. I'm sure that you're getting appropriate support, but that is a pioneer method of instructional delivery. And it would be important to me that we continue to support faculty as they become more familiar with that modality. I think it offers a lot of flexibility for instruction. You know, we knew that COVID has changed higher education, but actually I believe firmly that higher education was already in the process of changing. Our students, I think, started changing even before COVID. We knew that how they learned is different. We knew that they may or may not want to come to campus. They may or may not want to be present in an online class until the last minute. So that had already started. I would love to see how we can continue to support those innovative instructional. I think it sets us apart. And anything we can do to be set apart from other colleges, it only strengthens our name. It strengthens our purpose, our mission. Another thing that I've been so incredibly impressed about is the baccalaureate degree that you've offered. That is not an easy feat, and I congratulate any of you who were instrumental in making that happen, making that a reality. Do you know of the 50 community colleges in the state of Texas, only 19 of them have a baccalaureate degree, or as of last year, that was the statistic? Y'all are rocking it. That's awesome. That is big. And moving forward with that and leveraging it to perhaps expand other baccalaureate degrees that make sense, that would be something I would have a great interest in. One of the things I think is important for you to know, am I capable of coming in and doing great things? And have I had experiences with making change agents? Absolutely. But I know people are weary. I know our teachers, our faculty, our staff, our students are weary. When I left, you were weary. And so it has to be a cadence that doesn't further burden, because we have to have proper infrastructure in place to be able to support any change. The last thing we need to do is to do this, and this without giving strategic consideration as to the resource allocation that's going to be needed, physical, financial, human resources. And it'll be important also for us to know that we have the infrastructure in place, because we don't want to embark on all these new initiatives without ensuring that we're really ready and we can do it successfully. So I know that I would keep those two things. I have not come across anything that gives me pause. I'm interested. I've heard from Dr. King that the board is already in support of the 8-week model moving forward to a fall 24 launch. With that, I don't have experience in how that affects athletics. I don't know NJCA. I would like to know a little bit more about that and what that does. I do know the implications with dual credit. I've navigated that here and there. So I wouldn't have pause on that. I know that it's already commitment. People are moving forward, but I would be a little bit more informed as to the implications with our athletic programs and our performing programs.
Excellent, thank you. The next question that was provided to us is, can you provide an example of how you encourage collaboration between student services and instruction?
Well, I am currently the executive vice president. I'm the provost executive vice president of academic and student affairs. So it's pretty easy for them to collaborate with me, right? I have them all. And honestly, that's a natural fit. But even apart from the formality of a title or an organizational structure, you know, at Trinity Valley Community College, I had the luxury of entering one door, the student services door, and then moving over to the academic door. You know, it's separated here. So I had experiences in both that were really relevant to me as I've moved up in my career, and they're very relevant to me today. I have a working knowledge of kind of the functions of both departments in both areas, and I understand how sometimes they can conflict. Their needs can conflict. And so examples, I guess it's safe to talk about colleague. I don't know. I think it's still a really rough. So I'm just going to throw it out there, get it done with. You know, that was a time in which I had to try to foster communication, facilitate a coordination between academic, student affairs, instruction, and student affairs when the organizational structure didn't allow it. But again, I felt like I was equipped to do that because of my background. High school counselor, that lends itself to more student services, you know, advising, all those things. So that's probably the best example that I can give.
Excellent, thank you. The next question that we have, as president, you'll have to balance out the needs of all stakeholders at the college. In some cases, the priorities do not always align. Would you please describe a time where there has occurred, when this has occurred in your career, and how you handled the situation?
Wow, how many years, Tim, did it take us to get band uniforms? I mean, yeah. I know that. I'm not trying to trivialize that, but clearly, one of the things I was able to walk away from at Trinity Valley Community College, and I will credit Dr. King for this experience that he gave, was the budget process, the budget planning process. It wasn't done, believe it or not, it's not done in a vacuum. So if I can kind of indulge and explain to you how it had been done when I was here, and I don't know that that's changed, I would, as the Vice President of Instruction, it'd be my responsibility to work with my teams, my departments, all campuses, so everything on each campus, and individually work with each of those leads and try to come up with a budget. At that point, I individually would kind of look through it. I'll be honest, I don't think it's a secret. People have heard me say this before. I love everyone the same. And so if I'd see that academic affairs had more travel than technical, I might have to, what's going on there? So I would do some of that preliminary work. But what I also learned, and the experience, and I think I've talked with the vice presidents today, it sounds like it's still being done similarly, is after I would do my work and submit it to the budget fairies, then the vice presidents would come together under Dr. King's leadership, and we would hammer things out. We would say, well, wait a minute. Do we really need band uniforms? And I'd say, yes, we need them. That's a silly analogy. But it was at that time that we had conversations to be able to, we know that a pie is only so big, right? We have a certain size pie. I don't even like to cook, but if I did, I can't make that pie any bigger, and so we have to divide it, and we have to divide it in ways that align with the priorities of the college. And I learned that during those processes, we had to kind of negotiate and give and take and really get down to brass tacks. What is more important? At that point in that process, we would work then with the board. The board was generous enough to have a budget committee that they would help come in and kind of shepherd the process as well. So balancing the needs of a lot of stakeholders, I think, was probably that was a time in which it was very critical that we try to balance those. There's probably other examples. I mean, I know that in a multi-campus institution, there's differences. I've already referenced that. There are differences at each campus, and so balancing those needs that's a natural opportunity that the next president of Trinity Valley Community College will have. And so having that experience here that I have, I think will suit me well to be able to come in and kind of know the lay of the land and navigate those. I'm not afraid to navigate those and take those opportunities to champion. I will commit that the priorities, that the resources will align with the priorities of the college, and that those will be determined with a lot of shared governance, a lot of input from stakeholders of the community. We are the community's college. All campuses are students. Student involvement is critical. They're here, and because they're here, we're here. So resource allocations or making those types of decisions has to be done collaboratively, and it needs to align with the priorities.
Excellent. I think you're reading off my sheet here.
Oh.
You had talked about.
I don't have my glasses on.
You had talked about multi-campus, and actually my next question states, as president, you'll be pulled in different directions. How can you still make the satellite campuses feel your presence and provide the necessary support?
Well, it's about relationships. It's about relationships. It's about knowing their why. And not that their why is going to be different than the other campus's why, but it's going to have its own flair. It might be in cursive or Helvetica instead of Times New Roman, right? But to know and to acknowledge that they have unique whys, that's the first and most important, I think, obvious thing to do, to be able to have relationships with them, to understand what is it that this community, how do you serve this community? And how do you feel most comfortable? What do you think is the biggest thing you can offer this community? And it may look different. So I think to be able to support satellite campuses it's challenging. It goes back to the sharing the resources and where does that come in and kind of leveling the playing field. But relationships will help to shepherd that process quite a bit. I think it's important to bring campuses, everyone, the whole team together, the family together. I know we are in a more remote time and we've got opportunities and technology to be able to meet remotely, but why can't we have a convocation at Palestine? Why can't we explore other alternatives for creatively meeting and showcasing each of the campuses. We're so proud of each of the campuses for a variety of reasons. And being able to have a sense of belonging, I firmly believe that for our students and our employees to perform in an optimal manner, they have to feel a sense of belonging. And so cultivating that as their leader would boil down to relationships and hearing what their why is.
Thank you. The next question that I have here starts out, no one trained me for my job. I basically learned by trial and error. What are your thoughts regarding training for employees to be successful in their position?
Wow, I think I talked about that in one meeting today. I don't even remember. But how, and I'm going to use this word foolish, and I don't mean to be, but how foolish are we sometimes that we have an expectation for an employee to move from one role to another or one position to another? You know, sure, we'll give them the keys to the office. We might be generous enough even to make sure that their phone works and they have their, and this is the Wendy too, because we are busy and we're fatigued. How foolish is it of us to kind of drop them off at their office, to maybe give them our cell phone to text us if they need us, but then to have a job performance evaluation of them for tasks they may not even understand. So that's hard. Those are hard things because I know fatigue. I know employee fatigue. I live it now. I mean, the employees that I have the pleasure to work with, we're all doing more with less. That's kind of the world, and that makes it hard. But without having dedicating some time, other resources, training, external training, internal training, to onboard those employees, I think we lose the ability to have an expectation of them to perform. And it falls to leadership to figure out how to make that happen. It goes back to balancing. How do you balance all these things? Without proper training, it's really hard for anyone to find success and be able to move the needle forward.
Excellent. Now, the next question states, according to a recent survey, the overall satisfaction of the faculty and staff at TVCC is dropping. Would you please verbalize what steps you would take to address these issues and move TVCC into a more accountable, communicative, and responsive facility, and thus improve morale?
First of all, that makes me really sad. Again, I am TVCC. And in an environment in which an employee doesn't feel valued or they have issues with morale, it's really hard to find success, and it's really hard to come together and seek a shared vision. So in order to address that, I guess the first thing I would do is to, and I'm going to use this word, and I know eyes will possibly roll, mine may even, transparency. Transparency, you know. But what transparency means to me is that when those surveys come out, we look at them. We look at them, we talk about them, and we collaborate together. We figure out what are some commonalities. And you know, it's very likely that people don't feel valued. Maybe they get mixed messages. Maybe they don't feel as though they have autonomy. So I think it's important before you really come up with a solution, you've got to kind of get to the roots. And in order to do that, we have to be able to look in the mirror and we have to figure out what are some of these common things, and then we come together. Accountability. Earlier today, accountability, and you know, accountability makes a good organization great, and it makes a great organization unstoppable. But one of the things I did, is this me? Okay, is this on? Okay. Do I need to do this? That's probably good, because then I'm not under the heat lamps. Okay. Sure. When asked the question about accountability, I just want I wanted it to be conveyed that accountability is bidirectional. Accountability is not just about a supervisor holding their team or their employees accountable, but it's about the community, it's about the college, it's about the students, the staff, the teachers holding me accountable if I'm the next president. As the vice president of instruction after the first year, when I received my evaluations and I saw I only had 10, I'm like, that's a little odd. And so I worked with IR. Tina might remember that. Kind of complicated things because I wanted anonymity. I wanted everyone to evaluate me. That was important to me because if I can't be accountable to these people, how can I expect a level of accountability? And I'll tell you, I still have those evaluations today, and I look at them, and I'm not the person I was in 2016, largely because of some of those comments. I had some really great feedback. So when it goes back to morale, because I don't want to deviate too much, it's important that we are honest about that. It's important that we figure out collectively what are the common themes. Is it because there's a lack of trust? Is it they're micromanaging? Is it a disconnect? Is it I'm told one thing and then I have to do another here or there? There's so many variables that can contribute to employee morale. It is a dynamic factor. And so before we can have really serious conversations about how to fix it, we've got to figure out what it is. So that would be my first step. I'd have to get my hands on those surveys, and I'd have to really try to figure out, and yeah, that may be hard. Those are some hard things to look at. I don't necessarily like getting on the scale every day, but I get on the scale. So doesn't mean I'm not going to do it. Sometimes I do something about it, but no different. You have to be willing to look at the surveys. You have to be able to be honest about the surveys and identify what are those gaps or
Excellent.
what's not a gap. So.
Excellent, thank you. The next question states, TVCC meets the criteria of being a Hispanic serving institution. What strategies would you look to increase our diverse populations and retain and support them?
Well, that's very exciting. That was we were on the brink of that when I left in 2020. So I have a little bit of experience with this. I'm really trying to refrain from saying what I've done in Lamar State College Orange, but I do think it's relevant to this. Within the first 6 months, I worked with my team. We have very little diversity, and it is reflective of that community, but it still was concerning. So I wrote a grant. No more questions, right? See how I worked that in? Within the first 6 months, my team and I worked on a grant that was available within the Texas State University system, and it was targeted at trying to increase diversity, particularly in our employment pool. And so we wrote it. It was one of those grants that didn't have any directions. That's not easy. So what it required us to do is to come to the table and just figure out how do we even start? So we built our own framework. We built our own template. We were awarded the grant, by the way, $50,000. And it was when we were doing our research on how to achieve what the objective would be, how do we get there? We knew it was important to figure out what is the current climate? What is the climate of diversity? So did you know that there is a HEADS diversity climate survey that you can administer to faculty, to staff, to students, to community members that really identifies what people's perceptions are on how the institution handles diversity? Are there discrimination and harassment instances that people have experienced? I mean, it's an intense survey. So we decided we wanted to use some of those funds, if we were awarded, to administer that. It kind of goes back to you got to know where you are before you can really address the situation. So as I reported, we were awarded that. And we administered the survey. We actually administered it late last spring. We've taken those results, we've looked at them, and there is. What we know is that a couple of things. There's so many theories out there, but students have a sense of belonging, and belonging is important to me. Belonging for our employees, belonging for students. They can identify with people that look like them, that think like them, that act like them. Heck, that's how I am too. That's just the nature of being a human. And so in order to attract students, diverse students, it's important to be able to employ diverse employees. And so we've tracked that. We have been working to expand our faculty pool, our staff pool, and we've made some progress. So I know that in order to recruit diversity, it might even start with our employees and making sure that our employee representation is inviting. That's important steps. It's multifaceted, and it's not a one and done. We're still working through that. We've brought in some guest lecturers to talk about how do you, even as instructors and professors, how do they handle diversity in the classroom, because that in and of itself can influence how attractive Trinity Valley is to diverse population. How do our instructors, so after the feedback, we realize that there's some room for improvement on it's people's perceptions, and their perceptions are their reality.
Thank you.
You found one, didn't you? A microphone.
Oh, heavens, yes. With a multitude of departments having their own multitude of processes and procedures, what experiences do you have in streamlining and simplifying those processes?
Should I mention the C word again, Tammy? Colleague was probably a trial by fire. So that clearly enlightened me. Again, as I've mentioned, I've been in student services, I've been in instruction. Colleague, I broadened my horizons. I learned a lot from Courtney Walker. She was a champion. I know she's in here somewhere, but she was patient with me, Delana. So that was important, just to hear what the processes are, and then figuring out, well, wait a minute, why are we doing that? So working through Colleague, that process probably first reminded me of how important, or first, gave me a gut check how important the attention that we need to give to looking at our processes and evaluating. Why is it that we're doing them? How does it contribute and have an impact on other departments in the college? And here's the big question: how does it impact our students? Do the students know what a registrar is? Do they know that they have to take this test, this TSI test? There's so many variables. And so those processes, which when segmented from one department to the other, ultimately impact our students. And so I also have experience in streamlining processes. I've now for probably 7 years been the lead at either institution for our Pathways team, and that's work that the state is doing. And really the focus is getting students on the path. And early work was really revealing as to how disconnected a student's experience was. What do you mean? You tell them to go apply for financial aid and 2 days into the semester, and they really think that's gonna, so those kinds of conversations. So I have experiences in evaluating processes, looking at them, and recognizing the value in people coming together, having conversations. Just yesterday, Perkins 5 is a new federal grant that's really dedicated to career and technology students. And the shift with Perkins 5, which would have probably occurred in 2020, maybe 2018 probably, was it still had the focus of technical students. But it opened up for those that are underserved. And really, the funding became less restrictive for students who have financial barriers to success. So with Perkins, which we are afforded, you want to remove as many barriers. So if a student can't get transportation to class, How successful are they going to be? So one of the things that our institution has put into our Perkins request and was allocated was for transportation funds. Well, it was brought to my attention yesterday that our advisor who handles that, our technical advisor, when reviewing that, students aren't using that. Where last year, there was this many funds that we distributed. When I started asking questions and working with different departments, you know what I learned? It wasn't because they didn't want the money. It wasn't because they were embarrassed to ask and get help, but the processes were too obstructive. And so after a 30-minute call, we brought together a lot of stakeholders that are in the college, and we came up with a plan. And I'm very hopeful that that plan will be very meaningful to our students who have a need for transportation. Childcare is the same thing, transportation. But had I not known that it was our own processes that were impacting that student's ability to take advantage of being successful, I dare say that would have continued. So processes can have a significant impact on the student's experience and their success.
All right, I'm creeping in just a little bit to the time for the satellite campuses, but I did want one more question. Physical facilities are a crucial part of attracting new students. What are your thoughts about ensuring maintenance and relevance of those facilities?
Well, I learned this morning that David Graham has 300 bosses. So maybe we need to give him 301. I don't know. I also learned that he's counting, he's down to the minutes. And I'm happy for him. So physical facilities are a large recruiting tool. I had the opportunity today for the first time when meeting Coach Wynn, and I know I think she said she was going to be here. I don't see. What has been done in the softball locker rooms. That is a recruiting tool, I dare say. I've worked with fine arts many times with the band hall and the facilities there. Those are coming from Malakoff. They aren't probably very impressed with those. So physical facilities, beyond just the maintenance and making sure that they're safe and they're a healthy environment, they have a huge impact on who TVCC is to our constituents, to our community. It's a reflection of how we care for our resources. Are we being good stewards? Are we maintaining them? Are we ensuring, obviously, that they're safe, but are we also remaining relevant with other institutions? And when I say remaining relevant, I got to go and see the Zen room today. Melinda and Natalie let me sit on their couch for a minute. I didn't really get to sit on their couch, but I'm going to go back someday. I got to see that, and that's just really cool. That's important. That is kind of an innovative room. I saw the Success Center. But those facilities, and they've transformed significantly since I've gone, those facilities might mean the difference between one of our students coming here or not. I saw Dana, and I don't know if Dana made it back. I saw her walking all around campus while I was on the golf cart getting my windblown hair. Okay, we'll work on that. I saw her walking a student around, and my gosh, I can only hope that student was impressed with what he saw. His family, his parents were there too. I'll just say, my daughter, when she was considering coming to Trinity Valley Community College, and you might remember Barbara Parr, it was my dream for her to be able to be in Miss Barbara's hall. But when my daughter saw the dorm, she's like, Mom, I'm not staying here. And so I really couldn't even convince her, and understandably so. As I understand it, there have been some major renovations to Northwest Hall, and that's exciting. But there probably needs to be more of that. It goes back to balancing resources. It goes back to priorities. But that is a priority for student success. They have to feel safe. They have to feel as though they're in a relevant learning environment where they're getting top-notch instruction.
Excellent. Thank you. Now we're going to go to our satellite campuses and take questions. I believe we have Health Science Center, Palestine, as well as Terrell online.
Can I see them somewhere?
We're here.
Well, no, I don't see.
We're waiting.
I'm not, okay. Hello?
I'm just waiting.
That's a lively crowd, but again, it's Friday, right?
Oh, did they go to Palestine?
Yeah, it looks like we're not here. Y'all wait.
I hear Sherry.
Do we have questions? Question to Terrell.
Oh, okay, I see Amanda. Oh,
Yeah.
I saw Amanda.
Good morning, Wendy, or afternoon.
Is it
In
afternoon?
your opening statement, and I guess I'll give you some history real quick, because I know you've been gone. I've moved over to the Kaufman campus as a campus director. So, one of the statements you said in the introduction is that you already know the needs of Kaufman and Terrell. So my question is to you, do you have a vision or a goal for the Kaufman campus and based off the Kaufman community needs?
Sure, that's a great question. And I think I've had a similar question today in one of the meetings I had. So good to know that, Amanda. Congratulations on that. Yeah, my vision is it's going to align. I will tell you, when I noticed at the end of December that Kaufman County was it was perhaps the highest rate of growth in the nation. I think compared with 2016 to 21 or 18 to 20, it doesn't matter. It's a fast growing. It's a place that we've got to be. TVCC has to be there. So my vision is going to be similar to how I've kind of come into Orange. We are the community's college. I know that as I was leaving, I had the opportunity to work with Ann Glasscock, Lori Blaylock, even Wendy Eldridge, and we had conversations. What were their needs? One of the things I've had the opportunity to learn at Lamar State College Orange is our vision may not be what their vision is. It may not align with their needs. And so coming to the table fast, go ahead and dedicating resources to whatever that looks like is going to be probably at the top of my priority. Kaufman is too precious to walk away from it. I know that there possibly were some feelings of left out when the Health Science Center moved to Terrell. And so COVID has probably delayed many of those conversations, but I dare say that's probably the number one priority that I would pursue, is trying to identify what are your needs, what business industries, because they have to come to the table. We need to know what are their needs, what are their program needs, what are their equipment needs, and we have to get to business, and we have to get to business quick. That window of opportunity is quickly closing, and without Kaufman supporting Trinity Valley, that's scary. That's scary to the future of this college. So I don't have a specific vision other than getting to Kaufman County quick, reconnecting with them, bringing stakeholders to the table, and hearing what they have to say. I know as I was leaving, there were some needs assessment surveys done, and I don't know those results. I'd be interested to see that.
All right, I guess if we have no more questions. Oh, Janine was checking on her line to see if there was anything. If we have no more questions, then we can start our open mic session here in the auditorium. Audrey, I'm looking your way.
Is this a scam here? Audrey, you want me to tell everyone how I saw you today?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when I got to see Audrey, I got to see her Advocacy Resource Center. She was finishing her lunch and she was flossing her teeth. The one regret I have is I didn't get some of that floss before I left. That's okay. Okay. I know you wouldn't lie. I trust you.
A year and a half.
Oh. What is
Since we don't have a PI strategic plan, know that we're doing anything about it, or, we'll have to see what we're doing. So, this goes back to the paper I had yesterday. I was looking at the job announcement for person said, the new president must ensure that diversity, equity, and inclusion are woven into the fabric of the college. You know, a lot of people think when you talk about DEI, we're just talking about race and ethnicity. When she asked about curriculum bias, that's just one thing in the grand scheme of things. Job descriptions, I mean, it goes from alpha to omega. So, last year's statistics showed that 77% of the colleges and universities in the United States have a DEI strategic plan. We are in that 23% that do not have a plan. What's your thought about it? Would you be amenable to the implementation of one? Do you see the need for one? I mean, I think I already know your answer, but I just would like
Sure.
to that you expound on that a little bit.
Sure, thank you for that question, Audrey. So in December, I had the opportunity to travel to Atlanta for the SACS, the annual SACS conference. And interestingly enough, I attended a session. SACS has a position statement, and so let me just tell you what that means. It's not a policy statement that is a must, where institutions must, but they have a position statement that they have, I'm not sure how long, I would think maybe 2018, I can't remember what the revision date was. They have a position statement on DEI. And it kind of goes something like this. It's a long position statement, but it goes something like this. We recognize the value that students, employees have on a diverse campus. And so institutions, while not being required to do that, there are several strategies we would encourage best practices. And so some of those would be like strategies, and they can span the gamut. Regularly engaging in thoughtful conversations. I mean, I know that one time you're doing the courageous conversations. Sure. So, I mean, that clearly, again, going back to awareness, where are we? What is our baseline? Some other ideas are intentionally cultivating and sustaining equitable practices, probably going back to the job description, perhaps the curriculum. Then ensuring respectful and supporting learning and work environments. So those were just a few that I took from the excerpt of the policy statement. So my answer to you would be this, that I kind of like being accredited, and I have a strong suspicion that the direction that SACS is moving is to have that become a policy statement. Even apart from that, I value SACS. I value them and the recommendations they have across the southern region of which they are responsible for accrediting. And so because of the position statement that they have in place, it would be very important to me to research it and to move forward to seeing how it can be done or what's being done at other places.
Well, thank you. And you know, I told you, I'm trying to get out of the business of parties are us.
Parties are us. There you go. Thank you, Audrey. It's Friday afternoon. Is it that I'm too boring? Is it that it's Friday afternoon?
I'll ask
Are you
the question.
tired?
So you had talked about earlier that you ended up increasing your admissions, and then you ended up decreasing your withdrawals or drops.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of alluded to that. Can you tell us what action steps you took to do that?
Well, it's preliminary data, but we believe, or I believe, my team and I believe that we work very closely together. In the fall of 21, we worked together to implement an 8-week schedule of classes. So I arrived in April of 20, and we started having some conversations. But really, what you need to know about me is popular strategies around the country, popular and exciting, innovative things to do are really kind of cool. But until I see the why behind them, I'm not going to go down that road. And so I had spent a lot of time, my team and I had spent a lot of time researching what was being done, those that had pioneered before us. And some common things we heard from student success rates were institutions who embark upon the 8-week conversion, the part-time status of students, so the students who are part-time have the opportunity to move to full-time because they can take in an 8-week session 2 classes, 8-week 1, They're burdened only with 2 distractions. It's still the curriculum. You're not diluting curriculum, but you're having to go down to what the ACGM requirements are. You want to make sure you're covering those. They can take 2 8-week 2, and voila. They're still taking 2 classes at a time, but now they're a full-time student. And you may ask, why does that matter? Well, it matters greatly for a student who has financial aid. That automatically bumps the money that they have available to them if they're eligible. There's a lot of scholarships that require students to be full-time status. And working people, and let's just face it, probably our adult population here, they are employed. They have to be working. Managing 3 different classes at a time becomes quite challenging, and there's certainly to manage 4 just to get that scholarship it can be overwhelming and insurmountable and result in burnout, fatigue, withdrawals. So the research that we had done on other colleges, there were 5 or 6 that we visited and we collaborated with. Full-time status increased, and that was important for our students. They became full-time students. They had access to greater financial aid. Eligibility. I don't know how this works in the eligibility world. The other statistic that was quite impressive was the drop rates, the W's. So students, and we had done research, we had looked to see what percentage of students are dropping at week 1, week 2, week 3, all the way up to week 13 or 14 when the drop date was. What is that percentage? And what we found is overwhelmingly the rates got alarmingly high in weeks 10, 11, and 12. And that's fatigue. We know there's so many variables that contribute to that. But what we also learned from those who had pioneered the 8-week was they had experienced significant declines in their rates of withdrawals. Students were persisting. They were hanging in there. So they, after that data, that was pretty convincing. That was compelling to kind of dig a little bit deeper. Student testimonials became important. And one of the things that we did is we started polling our students and started looking at what does an 8-week schedule look like for this degree? How could you do it? We actually found that they could complete quicker by becoming an 8-week schedule. They could take 2 here, and that they would just never stop until they had fulfilled their degree requirements. So as I moved forward and we had conducted that research, it was pretty compelling. We were willing to roll up our sleeves and do some hard work because if it was beneficial for our students. That process was long. It was one in which required collaboration, kind of going back to processes. We brought in our marketing team. We brought in our student activities director. We brought in our, obviously, registrar, financial aid director, faculty senate, which is the faculty association here, faculty senate representatives. They were a part of weekly conversations starting in September or end of September through the following spring on how do we do this. We brought in business office. It was a large room where every Wednesday for an hour, hour and a half, we would have these conversations. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? What are we going to do here? But what we did was we came together and we figured it out. So we learned how it might have an impact on financial aid. How do you process this? What is your drop date going to be now? You now have a census date of the 6th class day instead of the 12th class day. So there's some implications for funding. So I go back to that because, Rod, you asked what I attributed that to. That's what we believe it to be. And as I said, it's preliminary data. It was hard work. It was done with a lot of collaboration, a lot of input. And the second semester, things we did differently than we did the first semester. We continue to poll students, and the students overwhelmingly love the 8-week. We know that there's some exceptions, so we also, in the faculty capacity, they brought to the table, how are we going to get paid? So we ironed all those questions out. We figured out, because the last thing I wanted was their overloads to be delayed till that second 8 weeks. That would have disrupted. So we brought in our payroll. We brought in our business office. It required some policy changes. But seeing the statistics that we see now, we also believe it had an impact on our enrollment increase. We really do, because what happens, we also had to work closely with the coordinating board, again, the Texas rules and regulations, to make sure that those students that came in 8-week, 2-week could count. We wanted to be sure and get funding for them, right? I mean, if we're putting out all this work, obviously we want our students to benefit, but we need our college to benefit as well. So we were a member of a pilot for 8-week, and our reporting had to change. But we really have seen some significant benefits, one of which we do believe is the withdrawal rates. We're going to continue to evaluate that. Hi.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Jason Engler. I'm a student here at TVCC. Started my journey at TVCC back in 2017, so I'm a returning student. Came back last semester.
Do you attend the Athens campus?
When I started in 2017, it was at the Terrell campus. In 2018, I was here at the Athens
Okay.
campus.
Do you mind if I ask what you're studying?
Currently, I'm working on an associate's degree in history and government.
Great.
Um,
Congratulations.
So I'm also a non-conventional student. I'm also a veteran, and I have 2 questions for you today. You kind of get a bonus question because I was here yesterday for Dr. Morris's presentation. Unfortunately, I missed Dr. Dre's presentation, but hey, you know, went back to my room after class and fell asleep.
Hey, I'm glad to have you then on a Friday afternoon. That's meaningful. Thank you.
So my first question is this: as a veteran, I want to advocate for other veterans.
Absolutely.
Okay, if it wasn't for the benefits that I earned, I couldn't have gone to school in 2017, 18, and then last semester and this semester. So, veterans that want to come here and use their benefits, how would you do right by those veterans? Because, some schools aren't really worth going to, and sometimes our benefits will get squandered at some facilities, some institutions and things like that. So. Then also the same kind of goes for non-conventional students, coming back to school, juggling work and home and school and everything. So for those non-conventional students and those veterans, how would you do right by them?
First of all, thank you for your service. I know that we're all here today and able to convene because of the work that you have done and the other veterans. So I'm grateful for that. We currently, sense of belonging. Belonging is key. I'm going to just say that is in my heart, that people who feel that they belong somewhere, they're going to thrive, they're going to flourish. And it sounds a little simple, it sounds a little trite, but what we've done in the last 6 months, we've created a veterans lounge, and we have a place where they can go hang out. There's couches, there's refrigerators, there's computers if they want to do their work. So they actually have we've made it in an area that's already in the student center, so they don't have to go across campus. It's something that's a natural fit for them, but we know that they have, if they have a sense of belonging and camaraderie, then their chances of finding value at Trinity Valley Community College are going to increase. No different than the non-traditional students. So I was a non-traditional student. My daughter was already born, I was working, my husband was working. That's tough. And so what it takes, I will say that's kind of where the 8 weeks those are the students that it has, what we've heard from their testimonies, has the greatest impact. They're now taking a history and a English instead of a history, English, math, and science. Not to say that, they will over the course of the same time take all 4 of those, but they're only distracted by 2 of them at a time. They're only balancing those. They've got a busy life, and I recall, commute time, managing my family, work, and then school usually was the last thing. So processes that we can put in place create senses of belonging. I've researched the data at Trinity Valley Community College. The adult population, the adult learners, that population is declining while the enrollment is picking up. We are losing somehow, somewhere, that adult learner. And so it's going to be incumbent that we figure out what attributes can Trinity Valley offer to encourage them to come, to feel like they belong, to not feel overwhelmed, to have support systems in place, extended hours, weekend hours here or there, virtual options. I think the high flex may be a good option that I'm hearing more about. I've not personally implemented that or worked at a college that has it, but as I hear it described, I think that is a good option for flexibility for those adult learners that have a lot that they're juggling.
Here's the next question.
Okay,
This is a
now, you
bonus
asked two already. Okay,
This is
I
a
just wanted
bonus
to make sure. Remember, I'm a math major.
Okay. All right. Now, this bonus question is based off of something that Dr. Morrison actually said yesterday. Now,
Okay.
for everyone that saw his presentation, you're going to know exactly where this question came from. Okay. Here's the question. If it came right down to it, would you be willing to drive a bulldozer for this school?
Oh, so my husband, Brad, if you've not met him, he's retired, and I bet you he can learn how to do that. I am very happy to offer him and his services. And I can hand me the keys, I can take a picture, I can do those things. I can be really good support. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
So you would make sure that that bulldozer is
Absolutely. I would, absolutely. Yes. Thank you.
I'm going to ask the same question in a different way that I asked the other two candidates. But I do want to touch on some of the things that you said that I really appreciate. You talked about infrastructure, which is super important. Accountability, also super important. You also talked about Brad. I think it's only fitting he comes out of retirement to work for 6 of the 7 presidents. Should be,
Yes, I know.
even if it's just a day trip. But in a different way of asking the same questions I asked the other two candidates, I've been sitting here and I've been looking at Rod's bottles of water and thinking about all the accolades that you talked about. I think about all the experience that Dr. Parnell has, who is my superior's superior. I'm wondering how many people had to sign the expense report for that water bottle in order for the person who purchased it to get that $4 back. And I can't believe that in 1997, when you were just starting,
Did you really hear that?
that your goal was to get to Trinity Valley as a presidential candidate so you could sign receipts for water bottles.
Well, Chris, that's can I ask how many digits were in the budget code for that? Okay.
A lot more than when you were here.
Okay, I just wanted. No, as a president, that would not be something as a vice president. I mean, there's, I've had several experiences here. I would probably not have, not that I don't have an interest. We all need water, but I talk about barriers. I talk about belonging, barriers. And let me just go back to also having, being respectful of our colleagues and kind of their processes and the things that they do. I'm hopeful that I can make that number 2 after Kaufman, okay? The water bottle situation and how many signatures? 14? Okay, that is important. That really is. Efficiencies are important. Being able to work through those processes. I would like to think that I could come to a similar situation as to what I was able to do with transportation yesterday for our students, being aware of those. Making our administration that I would have full confidence in aware of those and empowering them to find some solutions. That'd be important for me as well. But ultimately, it's about efficiencies for our fatigued friends. So, yeah, that's a lot. I like this water a lot better now.
A lot of work went into that water.
Oh, I had no idea. I hope I answered your question.
It
It's,
is fatigue. You're
It is.
absolutely right.
Mhm.
I didn't come back to work on a cheerleading program so that I could have my boss's boss sign a receipt for water. I don't think it's necessary.
Hi, Jennifer, how are you?
So, communication is often my thing, and we've had this discussion before, but we haven't had it in this role. So my question for you is, what's your philosophy about creating open lines of communication between the president's office and the various constituencies on campus? Obviously, I'm asking for faculty association specifically, so can you address faculty in your
Sure.
answer, please?
Absolutely. Gratefully, I had the opportunity to work closely with the Faculty Association, and I was able to kind of work with Dr. King. So I saw that as, I presume that's still the process where the president is involved in hearing helping to come up with solutions to challenges or water bottle issues, those types of things. But having an open door policy, it does create a level of transparency. You know, I'm using that T word again, transparency, but we are the community's college. And so to think that I would close the door to anyone is really scary. To think that any president would close the door to anyone is scary. It goes back to kind of respect as well. So I would have a team that I would respect. I would have a team that respects their colleagues, their employees as well. And so the nature of the conversations would possibly be tailored to what the intent was. I'm very happy to see that the president, actually where I work now, the president works closely with the faculty senate. Myself, he works closely with the staff senate as well. It's important to have those be aware, be informed that you're having to sign 400 times on this wall. Those things are important. You know, we laugh about them, but at the end of the day, if it impacts productivity, if it impacts morale, if it increases fatigue, we've got to kind of do better than that. We've got to come to solutions on doing better. So having an open door to hear those things, it would be important then that I would empower the leadership team that I have trust is able to come up with some solutions, and we would work together on that. But my door would be open. It's important that it be open. That's who I'm here to serve, is the community. And I need to be trusted that I care deeply for everyone that I have the privilege of serving. Here's Miss Deborah.
Hello. You really have already touched on this, but because I've asked the other two, I want to ask you.
Okay. Do I get a bonus question too?
No, well, who knows? You know how my mind works. We have a very healthy dual credit program,
do.
and you know that.
Mm-hmm.
We have extended out of our area in a variety of things. We've got a lot of our AVPs are working hard for that. Our Mary Helen is working very hard with the dual credit. But my question is, tell us a little bit about your experience and your feelings about us expanding, and also how we expand, but also keep our faculty informed, in the loop, and sensitive about things.
Okay, communication, good, obviously. So I sensed a bit of, from you, Deborah, and I will just say personally, while we are glad to have the enrollment in dual credit, to have almost a 40% enrollment comprised of dual credit is something that is, for sustainability purposes, concerning to me. You know, we know the adult learners, that population is declining, and it'll be incumbent upon us to find ways to attract those too. And so one of my philosophies is always about dual credit has always been that be their first experience, but we have to keep them. So what are our current awards? What are our current degrees? What are they taking at the high schools that they have to kind of come back and finish with us and become that adult learner? Kind of hedging our bets, keeping them there, but incentivizing, offering awards that allow them to come back and complete. So one of the things that I firmly believe in, and I know Kelly Townsend probably is a proponent of this as well, is stackable credentials. So the ISD wants them to complete something, a basic certificate, and we've gotten kind of good at doing this. You build the basic certificate, but really the employment skills, where the meat of the training is going to be in an intermediate or an advanced level, and that's where it's offered at the college. You can have partnerships with business. So I'll tell you, one of the things I have now is partnerships with some businesses in Orange, Texas, international businesses that have a presence internationally. They have internships. So they'll allow them in high school to kind of go and model, but the story's not done then. They have to come back and finish with us. They still have another year after high school. And so bringing industry partners together to hear what their needs are and scripting your curriculum such that they can start there, but really they're going to best benefit by finishing with us. You touched about communication with faculty. I think it's important, first of all, I failed to mention this at first. I'm entering a room where I know there are a lot of people who are scared. They're scared for what their tomorrow might look like, just by virtue of the fact that Dr. King is leaving, and that is so understandable. And I need to acknowledge that and recognize that that adds to your burden. That adds to your ability to kind of manage. And without that, that's real. I'm scared for the future of Trinity Valley. I really am. Again, I am TVCC. So I want to acknowledge that. The community's scared, I dare say. Each campus is scared. He has a long history here. He has a lot of trust. He's brought a lot to the table. And so the next president of Trinity Valley has a large shoes to fill. And the transition, the continuity has to be really smooth in order to maintain the pace and some of the things that have been done under his leadership. Communication is something I would think I'm really good at. My husband says I talk a lot, so I'm not equating a communication to talking. But one of the things I think I bring to the table is anticipating what people need to hear and knowing that by just saying, you're going to do this, that is not productive. You need to, just like when we went to the 8 weeks, I had to know why we would do that. I had to inform everyone who was going to be impacted before we even had our first meeting. Why would this benefit our students? And we had to have those conversations, and it was, student forum groups, faculty was represented. We had representatives from all areas of the college to have those conversations, to kind of know what that meant for the college, what did that mean for the students of our college. I would act no differently in this role, being able to share our why and explain, y'all, this is really going to be a challenge. I'm grateful. We are going to take this at a pace that's meaningful to TVCC, that doesn't continue to burden you, but we have got to secure our future. We've got 75 years to build upon. I expect to be here 75 more years. And I don't know if you've looked at the landscape of higher education in Texas. I think David Graham, who I think has left us, he is a short timer, right? There are some colleges that are concerned for their future. I strongly believe that Trinity Valley is very secure, but that doesn't mean we can remain complacent. So there will be some things that we will need to do. We will need to ensure there's infrastructure available to support those. But before we do those, communication will have to be widespread. The why needs to be the first part of that conversation before we even think about what that how looks like, or who, or when. So it's important. I share some concerns about the dual credit population. Thankfully, Dr. Hurley has the TDCJ program. That's a good hedge of our bet. We know that helps us to remain competitive in enrollment, but adult learners is a concern for me. And so creating ways to incentivize them, even from dual credit, to matriculate to us, to our campuses. I see Alicia. Come on down, the price is right.
So I'm not sure what happened with our Palestine campus people. They've been on a couple of days and asked this question.
Oh, okay. Are you their spokesperson?
As you know, I live in Palestine, grew up in Palestine. My family's in Palestine. Every day coming to work, I drive by Palestine campus. It's easy to notice that the traffic is heading towards UT campus over there. And so I want to know, what will you do to ensure the Palestine campus stays open, stays functional, and all those people there can quit worrying if they're going to have a job or not?
Yeah, I'm with you. So obviously Palestine is where my roots are. My kids, my grandkids live there. I've got connections there. I know leadership in Palestine. I know it's been, there's been some changes. I know the new mayor, Justin Florence, was a student of mine, believe it or not, back when I was like 12 and student teaching in Palestine High School. He was a junior in the 90s-ish. Then I also had the privilege of teaching as a TVCC student as well. But having conversations with the stakeholders, here's the thing, we need for Palestine to recognize they need us. They're paying some taxes to support Trinity Valley. We need for them to understand that and communicate that and recognize. But in order for them to recognize they need us, we need to figure out what it is they need of us. So no different than with Kaufman. It's probably going to be different conversations, not with different constituents, but to have some deliberations. What partnerships can we come together? We know that the TDCJ is thriving. We know vocational nursing is probably still alive and well in Palestine. As Dr. King explained to me this morning, they'll be moving to the Palestine campus. But Palestine is it's interesting. Palestine reminds me so much of Orange, where I am now. The community, again, I talked about first generation students, and what that means for those of you who are unaware is students who come to college for the first time in their family. They are the first person in their family to come to college. I've done a little bit of research to see Palestine does lag behind our other service areas in the Census Bureau reports baccalaureate degree. So Palestine, their rates of citizens in Anderson County, which is where Palestine sits, that have a baccalaureate degree is lower than it is in Henderson County or Kaufman County. So what that tells me is their value of education may be a little bit different. It's hard to really compare apples to apples because the Census Bureau reports it as a baccalaureate level. But it does give me pause to know that education may not be a conversation at the dinner table. Higher education may not be one of the things that, and I mean, I've worked in Elkhart ISD. That's one of the, you want to talk about it, but is that really what they're going to do? So we have to be relevant. We have to figure out what it is to be relevant. I know Amir Miramar, who's the provost at UT Tyler, and I worked with him. In fact, Dr. King and I think, had the opportunity before I left to go do a signing ceremony. You know, I don't know what possibilities exist. I'm currently in the middle of working with Lamar University on co-enrollment, and that's a really interesting concept. That is a model where students attend both Lamar State College Orange and Lamar University at the same time. We, behind the scenes, navigate that for the financial aid reasons, for the application reasons, but we know that that helps them to, community colleges, state colleges, two-year colleges are notorious for having greater levels of support, but it introduces them to Lamar's life, Lamar's experiences, their world, while they're still safe in the secure environment of Lamar State College Orange. I wonder what that would look like with UT Palestine. I don't know. I know they traditionally do nursing. Nursing students, BSN, have to have some prerequisites. They have to have those general ed courses. So where is it that we could have those conversations? I know Dr. Marshall in Palestine ISD has done a really good job with Wildcat Academy. I don't know where Westwood stands. There's several districts there that are underserved, probably. To where I think those would be important people to be at the table. But what we need to know is what is relevant to Anderson County or to Palestine. How can Trinity Valley be what they need? It's not an easy answer. I've watched it. I mean, I said I was a student a long time ago, and it is different. The parking lot looks different than when I was a student at night and trying to park in the handicap or here or there to find a place to park. It's different, so I recognize that, and it's a real problem. It would be important for me to find that niche, what Trinity Valley can be to Palestine and to Anderson County.
All right, I had that we are 4 minutes past.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine.
See that communication again.
Yeah, and so once again, if y'all would do me a favor and give a thank you for Wendy Elmore.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Again, thank you for giving up your Friday afternoon. Y'all have a safe weekend and go Cards tomorrow. Go Cards. So thank you very much.
All right. Since we're at Friday, I will bid you all adieu, but I would like to remind y'all that just outside in that on the little desk out there, we do have the little survey cards. And so if you would pick one of those up, it has the code where you can go in there and fill that out. Also, this afternoon, Janine will be sending out another email that will have one so that you can do a survey for Dr. Elmore. I'm sorry? Oh, she said she just sent it out, so it's in your inbox right now. So other than that, I do thank you for y'all's participation, and I hope that y'all have a lovely Friday and an awesome weekend. Thank you.